Welcome everyone. Today we'll have a first impression for Last Epoch. Now, coming over to Diablo first. Yes, I'm sure a lot of you are from Diablo. So yes, I have played Diablo for over thousands, close to 2,000 hours now since the release of the game. And I have had a lot of recommendations and suggestions to try Last Epoch. So what I did was, since yesterday, I have been trying the game and I want to provide you guys with a first impression. And in this video, I'll be going through some of the highlights of the game for me and to give you guys a short summary of what was interesting, what was great, and why would you want to try this game if you played Diablo 4 or if you played Path of Exile in the past. And in our future videos, I'll be providing you guys with a detailed comparison of Diablo 4, Last Epoch, and also Path of Exile. And I really want to do the comparison in terms of the cost, because the game is definitely cheaper than Diablo 4, but Path of Exile is for free, right? There's a lot of things to consider. There's a lot of customization. There's a lot of things. So let's get into the reviews and also the first impressions of Last Epoch. Now, right away you can see I started as a necromancer because I want to play a summoner. And after a short demonstration of a cinematic, which was not bad, and it was also voice acted, I was able to play the class I wanted to play. And I was really excited because the Necromancer in Diablo 4 was a little shortfall for me, and I was excited to see what can bring in Last Epoch. So as you guys can see in the background, we first started with a tutorial. And soon enough, I was able to get my skeleton summons and also to get my upgrades. One of the first highlights for me is you can be selecting different skills. And by selecting different skills, you can focus on leveling the skill and providing even more advanced benefits for that particular skill. And as a summoner, of course, I went into the summoning for the Necromancer minions. Now, as I progress through the story, there are some pretty nice cinematics and there are also some pretty decent story, which I'll explain to you guys as I go. One of the highlights for me in the game is that very soon, around level 9, I want to show you guys, I was able to get my first unique. And this is a little different compared to Diablo because, in Diablo I was able to get my legendaries but not uniques. Uniques really changes the theme and also the meta of the game, and the game was actually quite interesting. So here, around level 14, I was able to see my first time rift. So just a little, forward ahead of the game, you're able to travel between dimensions of time, back to the ancient past to fight dinosaurs and also dragons, and also back to the future, and forward, backwards, to end of the time, the disasters, which is actually quite cool. There's medieval times, there's future times, there's also dinosaurs and dragons, which I was able to have a good time going through the time zones. Now, coming back to my first unique item. Yes, as a minion summoning necromancer, I was really excited to get something that is useful for my class. And this particular item allows me to do tons of more damage and also tons of more stats for the minions. And I was really happy to get something early in a game that, can define the build. And I was using this stuff for a long time. Here, I want to show you guys the stats. It was really good. Now, one of the second highlight for me for the game is the ability to gain passive skill points through doing side quests. So here you can see I've been demonstrating a few of the passive side quests. You can see my mouse is. Here I'll be getting passive skill points for my character. And this is quite rewarding because this makes me want to do those side quests and want to travel and want to progress in the game, not just for the main quest. For Diablo, I tend to find myself, traveling a lot just for the main quest and just rush leveling. But here there's alternative goals and there's alternative rewards for doing the side quest, unlocking, more idle points, which I'll show you guys very soon, and also unlocking, more skill points for your character and also customizations for your class. Now, as I'm playing the Necromancer, what I wanted to show you guys is, yes, I can blink as a Necromancer. And this is actually really good because Diablo 4 Necromancer was quite immobile. But here I was able to respec my skills, blink around in the map, and as you just saw, I was able to fast travel to a zone which would take me 1 to 2 minutes to run around and just blink through it, which kind of cheated the map, and get to the destination very, very fast. And now having such mobility and also utility with Necromancer is really, really good. Now, as I was playing the game, I was able to find one of the rare dungeon keys. Unlike Diablo, Last Epoch, you have to find dungeon keys, and which is quite rare in the early stage of the game. And it's actually quite punishing if you don't know what you're doing. So here you can see that I will be using one of my dungeon keys to unlock a dungeon. And if I die, I will not get a second chance. I'll be kicked out of the dungeon. So I'll just show you guys. I was around level 40 around the time, and the recommended level was level 45. I was like, what does it hurt? Let me try once and let's see how it goes. I was like, oh, there's fire on the ground. I didn't do any research. I was like, I'm sure I can do this. And if you look at my HP, so within 10 seconds of the dungeon, I died in the dungeon. And yes, the dungeon is quite rewarding, but yet quite difficult. There are certain mechanics that makes me invulnerable to fire and also invulnerable to poison. And I was supposed to swap the invulnerability so I don't take any flame damage. So that was my first attempt of the dungeon, and it ended within 5 seconds. It is quite challenging, and I do like the rewarding part because you'll be getting more items and you'll be getting more loot, and the mechanics are quite interesting. Now, on the topic of dying, one of the highlights for me for the Necromancer, yes, I'm talking about Necromancer quite a lot. So here you can see my horde of armies with skeleton archers, zombies, Wrath, Ghost, and also Abomination, and also skeleton mages. So one thing is, I was killed by one of the elite boss monster because I was not careful, and I stood in the fire, right? And after I died, I realized my summoning minions were still fighting for me. So instead of reviving, I was letting them to do the work. I was like, let me see if they can kill the boss. Because here you can see my monsters are still alive. And guess what? Yes, I don't think this is a bug, but I was able to kill the boss while my character was dead. Because my skeleton minions and my summons were still alive and killed the boss for me. And this is one of the highlights for me. I was like, hey, that's actually pretty cool, right? So it really defines the feel of a Necromancer, because while I was dead, my dudes were still killing it. Now, I did try with other bosses, and that did not work, because the boss was too strong, it killed all my minions as well. But sometimes, if you're just short of killing the monster, your minions can do the job while you're waiting in the grave. And that was a really fun part for me in the game, in the early stage of the game. Now, as we progress through the game, there's some interesting zones, some interesting fights, and I don't find myself getting bored with the progression of the game, at least for the story. It took me about 9 to 10 hours to clear the entire story at this moment, and the game will be coming out of early access very soon, and I do believe there will be more extension of the story. So for me, the progression of the story and also the crafting system was quite interesting. Yes, the next topic is crafting system. Similar to a lot of deep games like Diablo and also Path of Exile, Last Epoch will have a crafting system. And even for someone who hasn't played the game before, and someone who has only experienced a bit of Path of Exile and also Diablo, I was able to understand the crafting system and try a few things myself. And trust me guys, it feels extremely rewarding as I was crafting items. And there are some certain highlights I want to share with you guys. We won't go into crafting into too much detail, but there are some parts of the game that just makes me feel I want to be a little happy about, simply because after crafting, so here I had a massive success. I'll move my head a little bit. So you can see that I was trying to craft the ring, and I was trying to craft resistance. And sometimes you get lucky with a massive crafting success by a random chance. And here it didn't cost me any of my crafting resource, and also it gave me double stats for resistance to poison and also resistance to void, and I was extremely happy. So there's some small things within the game that is randomly based and can give you some extremely lucky rolls, and also as you're crafting, it's not the standard, imprinting, legendary effects and just go with it, but rather there are some certain details you can get beyond lucky and beyond good with certain items, which is actually really deep and really interesting. Now, on the topic of items, yes, there are some really nice unique items and also even set items, which at this moment I have not been able to collect the full set. So you can see some of the green items and some of the legendary unique crafting items are really rare. And I was able to get this particular item, which can turn any item into a unique or set item. And that was actually quite cool, right? I was like, hey, this is my first rare item I've got. So there are some really interesting mechanics in the game, and I do plan to go deeper, and then if I plan to keep playing the game, I'll be making a few guides for you guys as I'm waiting for the Diablo 4 Garnet. Now finally, one of the highlights for me during the progression of the story is the boss fight. Oh boy, this particular boss, the God of Storm, took me close to 1 hour to fight. Simply because as I was playing the game, I didn't want to research a guide or a build, I just want to discover things myself, and I did make some mistakes, and my build is not optimized. Well, the fun part is, during those intensive and also extensive boss fights, I was getting destroyed a lot because of lack of resistance, because lack of damage, and not knowing the boss mechanics. But even with that, after dying 4 or 5 times, I went back to my stash, I went back to adjusting for resistance, I went back for different damage balance, and even changed my minions. I learned the boss mechanics. So it is quite rewarding in the game, in a sense the complexity of the boss fight, and also the learning curve and also the progression. At least at this stage for me, I feel challenged, and this is a good part for the game to moving forward. So one of the highlights for me was, yes, it took me like 40 minutes to do this boss, because each fight takes about 5 minutes and I keep dying, and it took me like 10 minutes to readjust my gears. But in the end, after defeating one of those god bosses, it was very rewarding. Now, in order to make the video short, my verdict for Last Epoch is that yes, this will be a game I'm planning to play while waiting for the Diablo 4 Garnet. And if the game is exciting and I'm getting into the end game, I'll be making a few guides to introduce you guys should you want to play it. But first, I want to compare this game with Diablo 4 and also Path of Exile, two of the best games in the current moment, and we're looking into Path of Exile 2 as well. So quite excited to share this first play review of the game, and hopefully this gives you guys a small summary of what is the game like and also what can you get by playing the game. Now before I finish, I really want to be happy about having a server for Australia. Yes, usually I'm in Australia, I get pings over 100 playing the US servers, and yes, there is an offline mode. Although while playing the characters, your offline characters cannot play with online characters, but playing the offline mode is available. And that is something great if I plan to play hardcore and also not engage with other players. So I'm quite excited to try that for the hardcore, because I'm always scared of disconnection. If I play Diablo and with the US pings, I usually die because of the pings. And let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about this game, and would you be interested in the game? And also, if you have played the game, feel free to leave me some comments and also some tips for the game.